Aita for not taking my sneaky link to the train station to catch his train. Here is the backstory. At the end of August, I, 19 female, traveled to a friend's house located around 10 miles from my home and brought along some friends. We all anticipated drinking while we were there because it was a Saturday night, and our population is just over 400 people, leaving us with limited weekend activities. Upon arriving at my friend's place, we found that our other friends had already arrived. They were all male, which included my 17-year-old brother. My friend decided to call it a night and went inside around 11:30 p.m., while the rest of the group was preparing to head home. However, one of my friends, Brett, invited a few of us to attend another party approximately 30 minutes away. I agreed, so Brett, along with two other friends, Brody and Nalan, and I headed to this gathering. Upon our arrival, the boys immediately engaged with other guys and began socializing. I followed them, as I only knew a few of the boys and was the only girl in the group. Someone shouted to the gathering that the boys from Northland were on their way. Northland is a community college nearby, about 35 minutes from both my town and the town where the party was taking place. The Northland boys had attended the party the previous night, and my brother had mentioned them to me that Saturday morning. He informed me that Lewis, who also goes to Northland and plays on the basketball team, was the one who invited them as they are all part of the same team. This college also recruits students from other states, so none of them are local, and they are typically of African American descent. Returning to the story, the boys reached the party and introduced themselves to me since I had not been there the previous night. There were 4 of them: Choppa, Day, Stink, and Randy. They were all quite amusing, and one of them ended up getting quite drunk that evening. Fast forward to Sunday morning, when I woke up early because I had tickets to the Zach Bryan concert that night. Later that day, Stink added me on Snapchat, but I did not recognize him until about a week later when someone else added me, prompting me to look at his profile, so I accepted his request, and we exchanged snaps back and forth. By September, we hosted a large party at my house for a friend, and he came along with one of my friends. I did not converse much, but Choppa mentioned that Stink thought I was quite attractive. I dismissed it and moved to drink with someone else. Later that night, I approached him for a brief conversation about how his evening was going. Approximately 30 minutes later, they were all leaving and getting a ride back to the college around 3 a.m. He sent me a snap expressing that he wished he could stay longer and watch a movie with me. He then asked if he should come back. I answered affirmatively, so he and Chopper returned. They stayed the night and slept in my room, but nothing significant happened. There was merely some making out between Stink and me. Basketball season commenced, and I attended all the home games since I had also been going the previous year, though it wasn't anything new. By November, he invited me over, and I agreed. It was around 2:30 a.m. when I arrived, and we ended up having sex before I returned home. A week later, he inquired whether I got tested regularly. He said he didn't want to blame me for anything, but mentioned that I was the last person he had sexual relations with. I replied that I was quite strict about that, and asked whether I should be concerned if he had anything. He assured me there was no issue, but I was determined to get tested since I was aware of their lifestyle and how they tended to sleep around. Everything came back negative. However, he eventually removed me from Snapchat, and I chose to move forward, continuing to attend the games. His friend Day, who is quite attractive, added me after one game and invited me over, but I declined due to prior commitments. During Christmas break, Stink added me again. I didn't initiate any communication, nor did he, so he unadded me once more. At the end of January, he added me one Saturday morning when they had a home game I was attending with my former basketball team and coach. I suspected it was intentional. After the game, we went out to eat, and once I returned home, I sent him a snap to check in. Following a few snaps, he asked what I was doing, and I replied that I was just watching a movie. He stated he was considering seeing me but likely wouldn't do anything and would stay home, to which I agreed. He then invited me over and asked if I could spend the night, so I accepted. I showered and prepared to head back to the college. Upon my arrival, we went to his room, watched a movie, and then had sex without protection once again. The next morning, I returned home. About a week later, he sent me snaps featuring another girl in his bed, which didn't bother me since we were only using each other for sex. The following morning, I had to work. my shift begins at 5 a.m., requiring me to leave by 4:15 a.m. During my first break, I went to my car for a quick nap, so I didn't check Snapchat. On my second break, I went upstairs to grab breakfast and opened Snapchat. I found numerous messages from my brother, friend Brett, and Nalin, along with a group chat containing two of my friends. I was puzzled, so I opened my brother's chat, which contained a screenshot of Stink's mugshot that everyone had been sending me. It turned out that a little after midnight that Monday, he and his roommate Day got into an altercation over a girl they were both involved with. Stink had brandished a knife and a pizza cutter at Day and began throwing pots and pans. His charges included both a felony and a misdemeanor. He was released later that Monday night at 9 p.m. During this period, I texted Day to inquire about what occurred, and we discussed the situation and what Stink might face in terms of jail time. Day then revealed that he was gay, and I initially thought he was just joking. However, he went on to say that Stink had been intimate with a man. My anxiety skyrocketed because my health was now at risk. Initially, I didn't believe him, as I tend to be quite skeptical, but he provided a name, and I found him and sent him a direct message. I was still rather shocked and filled with anger. Day speculated, "What if he is bisexual?" I responded that I wouldn't mind if that were the case, but if he had been intimate with another man without protection and then had sex with me without protection, it significantly jeopardized my health. I noted that had he informed me, I would have ensured we used protection. On Tuesday, I went to get tested and informed my doctor about the incident. He advised me to return in 6 months to undergo another blood test for HIV, as it could remain undetectable for a year. Later that evening, my brother had a basketball game that my friend and I attended, and Stink requested a ride to the train station. His train was set to leave at 2 a.m., so I would need to pick him up at midnight, keeping in mind I also had work the following morning. I agreed, seeing this as an opportunity for closure regarding the entire situation. While driving home, I contemplated asking my friend to accompany me because I wasn't sure I could stay alert on the return trip. I called him, and he hurried over to my place, refusing to let me go. He insisted I shouldn't go because Stink had a felony charge, meaning I would be aiding a felon in fleeing the state, which could have legal repercussions for me. I then asked Stink to prove that he could leave the state since he wasn't from here and was only attending college. He sent me a screenshot of an email from a woman I was familiar with. The email merely stated that he needed to attend court dates via Zoom, with no mention of the ability to leave the state. My friend and I began to argue because I felt guilty. He has no support and had burned bridges with the entire basketball team. My friend took my phone and stated, "Sorry, but I don't want to face trouble for dropping you off and aiding you in leaving the state," after which he promptly removed Stink from my Snapchat. The following morning, I called in sick to work because my anxiety became overwhelming, and I could not stop crying from the sheer guilt. 2 weeks later, the man Stink had been with sent me a direct message confirming the whole story, and now we are friends. Am I the antagonist in this situation? Story 2. Affair partner gets dirty. Illegal linens aired. Loses job as financial planner. Throwaway account. Note 1. Names, characters, and locations have been altered for privacy reasons. Note 2. This story includes a trigger warning as it involves gaslighting and infidelity. Names Matt edited for clarity. 39-year-old gay male living with lupus. George, my partner of 13 years, who is 1 year older at 40. John, the 33-year-old individual involved in the affair, who is a financial advisor. Background, a bit of context. My partner and I were monogamous for a decade. While we had the occasional threesome prior to that, there was nothing extensive. I'm aware that some individuals may argue that this is where our issues began. The understanding was that we would not engage in activities behind each other's backs, and anyone we included in our relationship would be considered an equal. We aimed to evolve our coupledom into a throuple. Unfortunately, this did not pan out as planned. We attempted to broaden our relationship, but the last person we pursued ended up gaslighting me and portraying himself as the victim to George. I admit that I wasn't my best self at that time. After the loss of 2 significant figures in my life who essentially raised me, I was grieving. My focus was primarily on my remaining family, whom I loved dearly. My partner used my lupus and my choice to spend time with family as excuses for his infidelity and dishonesty towards me. D-Day. The events unfolded over several days preceding COVID-19 lockdowns. In March, my partner expressed a desire for some time apart. I initially agreed, but it felt like something was amiss. I believed our relationship was fine, yet an unsettling feeling lingered. I have my own residence, so I decided to give him some space. D-Day 1 on Sunday, he informed me that he had a spa appointment, a legitimate massage, that evening and would be busy, unable to join me for dinner until late. I did not suspect anything was happening behind my back. He assured me he would call when he finished and instructed me not to wait for him for dinner, as we had been accustomed to sharing meals together. I needed a notebook I had left at his place, and thinking he was at his spa, I let myself into his home. To my surprise, I found him having dinner with John. I left, and he reassured me that it was merely dinner with a friend and that his spa appointment had been rescheduled. When I directly asked him if there was something romantic between them, he denied it. D-Day 2 on Wednesday, I was completely distraught. I had no idea what was happening. I could no longer distinguish between truth and reality, and my instincts told me there was more to the relationship between George and John than George had revealed. I conducted some investigation and discovered they were friends on Facebook, but not on Instagram. Odd, right? However, they had been liking each other's posts on Instagram. Recalling that George had logged into my iPad, I checked for any message history. Sure enough, I found exchanges between them spanning several months. Again, I confronted George about this person he was friends with on Facebook, but not on Instagram, questioning why their interactions seemed so unusual. George maintained that he was merely a friend and insisted that I was being paranoid. My blood must have been boiling at that moment. I reminded him that he was still logged into my iPad, causing his expression to shift dramatically. He accused me of betraying his trust and said that I should not have done that. He was clearly in panic mode. In their messages, I discovered that they had been seeing each other since September 2019. I had undergone an emergency appendectomy in October 2019, thinking I just had indigestion, but it turned out I had chronic appendicitis that had ruptured. The very next day, while I was recovering in the hospital, George and John went out for dinner, and John stayed over afterward. It's easy to guess what transpired that night. They discussed me in their conversations and even planned to meet on Monday, after D-Day 1. John inquired if I would appear again, and George replied that I would not. At this point, my entire past felt like a massive deception. Countless sleepless nights followed as I reflected on how I had been the fool in this deception for 5 months, completely unaware. Angered, I sought a revenge service for hire. I was not thinking rationally, but fortunately, I selected a service that performed admirably. I provided them with all the information I had on John, which was minimal, just his social media accounts, and they conducted thorough investigative work, uncovering a significant amount of dirt on him. It was revealed that John was also in a relationship. Should I inform his partner? Absolutely. George was not the only one being deceived by John. They managed to unearth chat history revealing John's affairs dating back to 2017. What's most intriguing is that John indulged in illicit drugs during these encounters, complete with contact information for those involved and locations where these meetings occurred. They delved deeper and discovered conversations where he advised friends on committing insurance fraud. Although nothing monumental, fraud remains fraud. From the chats, it seems the insurance companies did compensate for fraudulent travel delays. The revenge agency then asked how I wished to utilize this information. I expressed that I wanted to ruin John's life. My life and relationship had been demolished, so why not share a bit of the pain I endured? The agency informed me that all relevant parties had been notified. The last I heard, his insurance company dropped him due to his encouragement of insurance fraud, and he now possesses a criminal record for drug usage. With this record, he can no longer travel to Canada or Japan, countries he enjoyed visiting. His family is aware of his infidelity and drug use. Moreover, his partner knows he had been unfaithful, with no protection and without pre-exposure prophylaxis. In summary, if you mess with me, make sure you are as innocent as a saint, or I will label you as a cheater or worse for life. The individual involved in the affair now has a drug record, lost his $150,000 a year job, and is prohibited from traveling to Canada and Japan due to drug-related charges.